All right, next question from another long time friend and friend of the pod, the one, the only, Michael Cummings.
Coach Cummings here, a.k.a. Michael the Trainer, a.k.a. MC.
I have to take a second to get over the fact that Michael has transformed into a Grand Theft Auto character. So, I gotta take a second. Let me absorb that for a second, and then think of my answer.
Welcome into the Train with the Best podcast. I'm Craig Hoffman.
Chris Gorres.
And this is episode 200. Chris, that is wild.
Yeah,
here we are.
Yeah, that's right. It's a big one. I can't believe how fast it's gone. Like it feels like we weren't in that peach shop like just last week, you know? But it has. Like when you look over everything that we've done, all the cool stuff that we've been able to do, all the cool people we've been able to meet and talk to. Yeah, it's been quite a ride, quite a journey.
No doubt. And we reflected a little bit on this just a few episodes ago, as it was our 5-year anniversary. But today what we wanted to do, it was like, who do we want on for episode 200? And we were like, why don't we do everybody? Right. So what we have is kind of a celebrity who's who, friends of the pod. Some of them are trainers, some of them are athletes, some other different roles in terms of professional careers, but all different coaches and fitness people that have been on the pod and contributed to the podcast over the years. And we had them all submit questions for us. So some names that you know, some names that you might not be as familiar with, depending on when you started to listen to the pod. And we're really pumped to do this. We got some great questions, and it was great to reach out. And everyone was nice enough to send along a little love as well. So that's the gist of the pod. Real quick, you just got off vacation. How are you feeling?
Yeah, I feel like I need another vacation. You know, anytime you go and you have a great time with the kids, it's obviously a lot of fun, and it's a time that we all need, and there's some core memories there that we'll share and hold on to. But you know, my kids are still young. I still have two pretty young kids, and DJ and Bree, who require a lot of attention, and we did this spring break with a couple of other families in the neighborhood. So, you know, their kids were there, and it's a lot, but it's a lot of fun, and I know it was worth it for the kids. You know, they came home and they were really excited about the time that they just had, and it made it all worth it. But yeah, for now, it's like a combination of getting back to the real world. Allergies are starting to kick in, so it's a lot to get through, but again, I'll get through the next couple of days for sure.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I imagine when you have kids. It's like vacation for the kids means the adults need a vacation after. That's what It sounds like.
Right.
By the way, one last programming note real quick. Next week's episode 201, it's a big one too. Clay Skipper from GQ is going to join us.
That's right.
Clay is the host of their Above Average Joe series. If you watch on YouTube, basically he works with professional athletes to try to do the things that they do. You know, can an average guy hit a 90-mile-an-hour fastball? Clay has found out. So that's the kind of stuff that he does, and we thought that was a great fit for the podcast. He's a great dude. Having a chance to talk with him and setting it up. So Clay Skipper from GQ will be the guest on episode 201. Next week. But we start our mailbag, Chris, all the way back with one of our first guests that we ever had. I believe he was a guest on episode 3 way back in the day. Joel Sanders from EXOS with the first question for us here on our mailbag.
Craig, Chris, and the Train with the Best crew. Congrats on 200. That's no joke. Hey, I have a question for you, more of a personal request. Is you've done 200 episodes. What's the one episode that I should go back and listen to? You know, which one is jam-packed with the most info? Which is the most valuable, right? What's your favorite? Hey, thanks for all you're doing to push the industry forward. I appreciate you guys. Peace.
The great Joel Sanders.
Joel Sanders.
With the question that he's not going to be satisfied with my answer, because honestly, I think it might be the most recent one we did with him. And I know that's part recency bias because trying to remember 200 episodes is a lot. But if like you're talking about jam-packed with information, the programming episode we did with Joel in Phoenix a month ago, 6 weeks ago, whatever it was 6 weeks ago at this point. I think it was. Like that's one of the best straightforward. I'm not just sucking up to Joel because he asked the question. Like, but you want to talk about like jam-packed with information. There's a lot of other episodes that from entertainment value, from learning people's stories and interviews. Like I have a lot of favorite episodes that we've done, but for information, man, I don't know if you're going to do much better than that episode. And by the way, as the person who watches the numbers on the YouTube hits and the podcast listens, all that kind of stuff, a lot of people agree. That's one of our more popular episodes we've done in the last year.
Yeah. First off, thanks to Joel for always being a good friend of the pod. I think from a personal standpoint, I'm going to agree with you on the Joel episode that we recently did. Not because of anything, but because of the space that we were in. I mean, that's the coolest space that I've ever been in. I mean, that's the man cave of all man caves. Like,
that place was sick.
If I had a couple extra million just lying around to build a man cave, that's what it would look like. So from that perspective, it was the Joel episode that we recently did. If I had to pick one that I would recommend people to listen to, I think it would just depend on who that person is. Like if you're a new trainer, yes, listen to that one with Joel when we talk about programming for noobs. If you're somebody who is really all about the ins and outs of the science, like I would go back to listen to some of the stuff we did with like Sean Pena or even like Dr.
Kristen
Perry
Holmes.
Yeah, Dr. Perry Nicholson was another good one. Like there's been some fire on here, and I know it gets pretty nerdy with some of those guys, but if you like that stuff, then I would definitely go into some of those episodes with the Sean Penas and Perry Nicholsons of the world.
I also really enjoy, obviously, the athlete interviews. I think they're really insightful in a different way. Like, you can take stuff out of people's stories. I mean, it was like episode 15 or something like that. It was really early. Will Compton, that episode. And obviously, Will's career has taken off in the podcast space in its own right since then with what he's doing with Bussin' with the Boys. But I think that episode was really great. I mean, obviously, he's one of the biggest names we've had, but Derek Carr, that episode was phenomenal as well in terms of like getting in the mentality side of it. I mean, Heyo was great just a couple episodes ago on that same front of like what does it really mean to perform at that super high level. So yeah, I mean, obviously it depends on what you're for. If you're a new trainer, you're not going to do better than that episode with Joel. If you want to dive into some deeper stuff, even the one I think it was the episode we did. The momentous one was great from a nutrition standpoint. Yep. But like even the one that we did.
What about the one we did with Whoop?
Yeah, Kristen Holmes from Whoop. Yeah, that one was great. Yeah. But the one that we did with Meg Young, but like the intro to that segment or that episode, like before we even had Meg on, was like when you did the deadlift formula thing.
Oh yeah.
Like that one was really insightful and cool. People take away from that. So like that was a great one.
I think I remember doing that deadlift formula in my car on the road. On
you were driving. I had you on the phone. You were driving down I-95 back home to Richmond. As I'm like, man, we scheduled okay, fine. We'll just do this. We'll do this now. It's now or never. Right. And you wind up dropping one of the gems of all time in the podcast.
Right.
But the other thing I'll say real quick in terms of other episodes, it's not just like the training knowledge, but like the industry knowledge. Like if you're a trainer who's trying to make that decision of like whether to go on your own and lead the big box gym, like there's an episode called Flying the Coop where I talk about my decision to do that. And so like that kind of stuff I think is really insightful too. Yeah. You had some great knowledge drops over the years on like owning a facility and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
As for training itself, our next couple of guests are people that used to train with you. Let's say hello to an NWSL GM. Let's have an NWSL executive on the podcast.
Hey, Chris and Craig, congratulations on 200 episodes. That's amazing. I have a question for Chris. If I was going to start on a program now, how would I start and how would it be different from when we started working together, I guess now 10 years back? I was starting at square one then, so curious, how you'd work with me now and if it would be different or what it would be like if I started again. Hypothetical, but maybe I'll make a comeback if your answer is good enough. Congrats again, guys.
Yael Averbuch-West checking in. So if you were to train with Yael or train Yael now, I think what's interesting too is not only is she 10 years older and obviously retired and a mom and looking for different things out of her workout,
right?
Than to make a team. She's busy running one and doing a great job with Gotham FC. But you're also 10 years older and wiser as a trainer too. And I think that's actually on some level a more interesting part of that question is like 10 years of experience later, like how do you think about programming for someone versus how did you 10 years ago?
So first of all, man, this is just really cool just to see kind of the videos coming in because you've had these videos for a while. I haven't seen any of these. We had people send videos to you. So to see the friends of the pod and like you just explained, like the friendship with somebody like Yael for 10 years, and where we started. And I distinctly remember her very first workout. I think I could write it down for you, everything that we did on her first workout, because she was working out with Ash, and she was like, hey, I was teammates with Ash at UNC, and she told me about you. Can I jump in on some of your workouts? And yeah, sure, come on out. And she was thrashed. Like she went through a lot.
I think she told us that story on the podcast. I was like, what was it like your started relationship with Chris?
Yeah.
And she's like, I hated him. It was terrible.
Yeah, and part of that too was me making too many assumptions about where she was, right? Like, you know, not asking enough questions, not getting enough information from her about the things that she had done in the past and what she's used to and what she's not used to. So definitely wouldn't start her off like that. But the biggest difference now as somebody who's retired is there's no time frame, right? Like there's no season to get ready for. There's no preseason date that I have to have you ready for. So we're on our own time, right? So like if we have a certain goal to lose weight or get fit or get, you know, like there are no numbers to hit. There are no dates to be ready by. So that's the first thing that changes. Like, and I've gone over this with even a guy like Lorenzo, like like there's no training camp for you to get ready for right now. So like if you're not benching this much, who cares? It doesn't matter, right? Like we have the rest of your life to get yourself fit and to move well and to do all those things. So, you know, I think even for me, up until this year, where it's like, all right, I got my 40th birthday, so that's actually been a date on the calendar to look at. It's always been like, hey, I just got to do just enough to stay above the threshold where I feel strong. Like I don't need gains, but just enough so that if I needed to be strong in a moment, it's there. So that's probably how I would train Yael now versus how I trained her back then, where it was, hey, we got preseason to get ready for. You're competing against people who are competing against you right now in this moment. So we got to be better than them. And all that's gone when you're retired. So
yeah. It's the pressure comes down significantly.
Right.
Or you find a new hobby like this guy did.
What's up, Train with the Best podcast? I just want to congratulate y'all on the 200th episode. This is amazing. Hopefully now I'm going to get some tips from you guys about arm wrestling, seeing as though now that's the avenue that I'm going in right now, being a professional arm wrestler. So I'm looking at Trainer Gorres and I'm looking at Craig to give me some tips on one of your next episodes. Hopefully you guys are all good. Talk to you soon.
U.S. men's national team, two-time World Cup participant, co-owner, co-founder of Onyx Elite with one Christopher Gorres, Oguchi Onyewu, man who has recently arm wrestled on television and won for America.
Right, like he brought back the dignity of it. That was such a funny thing because, like, that was my return to Twitter. I have been off Twitter for a little while, and then like that was the thing that was like, oh, I gotta click on this because Gooch is blowing up on Twitter. So let's see what's happening, and just like the comments of like England being up 13 colonies to 0, and then Gooch like bringing back the dignity of our country. So I don't know, it was funny, but for him being an arm wrestler, I tell you what, if that's what he really wanted to do, and I don't really know too much about arm wrestling, like I'm not going to sit here and pretend to think that I know.
You're barking up the wrong tree.
Right, but I got to imagine that a long lever is an advantage, so he's going to have an advantage just being somebody who's 6'4", he's got a big frame, somebody who is naturally strong and stubborn like he is, like the ability to not give away an inch, I think that's going to be something that's probably going to be advantageous in that sport. And yeah, I mean, Gooch, look, you're one of those guys that like you could just step into a weight room for the first time and you're going to deadlift 500 pounds. Like I don't know that there's anything that I can offer you other than say, yeah, if you want to do it, just set your mind to it and you can do anything. So
I would think some grip work probably is helpful. Some bicep curls, some shoulder stability.
Hey, that was a thing. That was a thing. Do you remember those hand grip?
Yeah,
those hand grip trainers. So like there was, I forget which one it was, but there was like certain levels, and there was like only like 3 people in the world that could squeeze the highest level. I forget what those were called. I don't know why I can't remember them, but
I think there's probably other stuff in your brain that's more valuable taking up space.
yeah, probably. But I do remember that was a thing early in my career where people were like, "Yo, who can squeeze this?" And I'm like, I can't. That was never really my thing. I always like when I was training grip strength, I always like to do fat grip stuff, towel pull-ups, stuff like that.
Yeah, that's probably more functional than just squeezing. I think my grandfather actually had one of those in his car because in New York, like traffic on the Long Island Expressway, not a good time. So what did he do?
He's just doing this
sit there in traffic,
to relieve
which
stress.
is amazing because the man also drove a stick his entire life. So I don't know how that worked from the shifting to the probably a lot of actual dead standstill time. But he was strong as an ox into his 70s. So playing tennis, like killing people into his 70s. So
yeah,
go Jim Gantz.
So one quick story about Gooch, and it's funny because I just thought of it because you said about driving stick. In other countries, people still drive stick quite a bit. Here in this country, we don't. The other thing that people do in other countries is when you go into a parking spot, you always back into a parking spot. Like you don't go head first. In this country, you pretty much just go head first. So Gooch has been been back in this country for long enough. Now we'll see what happens because he's been in Europe for the last year and a half. But for a while, he started when we would go out to places or for meetings or whatever, for lunch, whatever, he would park like the Americans do. And I'm like, okay, so you're back now. He was like, wait, what? What are you talking about? And I was like, look at the way that you're parking. You never used to park like this. He was like, oh, touche. Yeah, you're right. I've been in America too long.
That's so funny. By the way, another one of my favorite episodes, when we finally had like the full Chris and Gooch story down at Onyx Camp.
Oh, yeah.
That's a all-time favorite of mine, where you just completely took off the I host this podcast cap, and it was just me interviewing you two about your relationship, and it was
right.
It was a good time. It was a good time.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, by the way, that Gooch had to dismay the country of England like that, because we had a very nice Englishman. Could give us some congrats. Tell us who your boy Dwayne Paul is before we play his message.
So Dwayne, I met at the very first Vertimax certification that I did here in Richmond. It was a big one, right? Because this was like the first time that Vertimax had ever put on a certification. So people,
I know, because I was there.
Yeah.
I got certified. I was the first
Were you?
certification person. I think I finished the test first, so I think technically I was the first one.
Were you the first one? So this was the one that I hosted with Vinny and with Steve Leo.
Oh, maybe it wasn't that one.
Okay, so that was this was the very first one that like.
Okay.
And before I had even earned the trust, before any of the master trainers had earned the trust to do these things on our own. We did it as a team of 3. It was me, Vinny Scolo, and Steve Leo.
No, I did the first one at like when Onyx opened,
Right.
like the opening weekend. So there's one before that.
Yeah. There was one before that.
Okay.
There's one before that. And he came over from London, so he won. We had people from all across the country because again, this was the first one and it was a big event. He had come over from London and we hit it off right away. He had hit me up before even just to say, hey, I'm coming your way. I can't wait to take the certification. And then we had stayed in touch ever since. Throughout the years, me going over there to do a thing in, where was I? Leamington Spa in Birmingham or wherever I was in the UK. He was there to help me out, and he'd been to some of the stuff that we did down in Tampa at the summits. So he's always been around, been a listener of the show, and he'll hit me up for some advice and how he's building his business now, training youth athletes and rugby athletes and teams. So he's a friend of the pod and somebody that he's one of those guys that when I sit around and I listen to the questions that he asks me, it humbles me, because here's a guy who served in the military over at the UK, who has done so much incredible stuff in his life, and he's asking me for advice. And that's what like humbles me, because I'm like, there's no way that he should be asking me for advice. This should be the other way around. So I've always looked up to him, and I hope he knows that.
That's really cool. I would say it's always just super cool to see, as I'm, again, surfing on the back end stuff, like through the stats and all that kind of stuff, to see people listening in England, obviously in the Philippines. And that's something I've come to understand about you, is like that you have such an influence in the Philippines fitness community for the career that you've built here. But just seeing people listen literally all over the world. So as we head into our first break, thanks to Dwayne for sending in this video.
With the best podcast, 200 episode. Guys, really well done. I'm really enjoying it over here from England. I'm going to continue to be a massive supporter for the work you guys doing. Continue doing a great job and keep up the good work. All the best. Cheers.
The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Super Coffee, who's got brand new flavors, and they're tasty. In fact, it's the Tasty Pastry. Yeah, that's the new line from Super Coffee, and it's a bit of a silly name, Tasty Pastry. Just rolls off the tongue in the way it might in a kindergarten-esque kind of way. Hey, I want the Tasty Pastry. Yeah, that's what you want. But the thing is, we're all kindergartners at heart, which is why Super Coffee created these delicious flavors. Blueberry muffin, caramel waffle, cinnamon bun. Come on, tell me you're not intrigued. Let's say you just want to try them. Well, they have a 3-pack with one of each, the trial box. They have a trial pack. I just got one. I'm really excited. Next week, I'll be able to talk about tasting these flavors in the ad because I will have had them. Comes in a 12-pack, get 4 of each. Delicious. You ready to commit to one or the other? Go ahead, dive right in with your 12-pack and do it all right now at drinksupercoffee.com. You use the code TRAINWITHTHEBEST and you get 25% off. So that's a pretty good deal. 25% off your first order, drinksupercoffee.com. Try them out, the new Tasty Pastry Collection. They're tasty. The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Jakku and the Jakku Speed System. If you're a speed athlete and you're not getting accurate times, how do you know if you're getting better? Simple question. The best way to run fast is to go fast. But in order to really, really push your limits, you need to test that. So get yourself a Jakku. It's an affordable system to get accurate timing unlike any other on the market. No fancy lasers, no $1,000 whatever other systems out there. This is an app on your phone that pairs with a watch that you get from Jakku, and it starts on your first movement, and it stops when you cross the finish line. And unlike any other speed system out there, it can get multiple laps, meaning you can do shuttle drills like the 5-10-5, your pro agility type of drills. So you can really challenge yourself and know that you're getting consistent, accurate timing, rep after rep, set after set, session after session. Best way to do this? Come on. You think we don't have a discount for you? Jakku.com/discount/TWTB. That's Jakku, JAWKU.com/discount/TWTB, as in train with the best. It's 20% off the Jakku Speed System or anything else on their website. Check out a muscle blaster. Check out some of the accessories that can help in your training. Jakku.com/discount/TWTB, and check them out on Instagram at Jakku Speed. Continuing on our episode 200 celebration here on the Train with the Best podcast. One of the friends that we made recently that I just can't believe how quickly we've gotten to know this guy and how really essential part of the family he's become for Train with the Best. He's been a really great advisor for me over these last couple of months after we got the chance to go out, shoot a video with him in Phoenix, a video that is steamrolling towards 1 million views, by the way.
That's right.
Nick Simmons, 2-time Olympian, YouTube star. He's got like a real question for us as he's getting ready for his powerlifting competitions. Oof. Chris, I hope your thinking cap is still working after your kids drained you on that vacation.
All right, let's do it.
Yo, Train with the Best, Nick Simmons here, and I want to congratulate you guys on hitting 200 episodes. Phenomenal accomplishment. Way to be consistent, and I do have a fitness-related question that maybe you guys can help me with. I have been bulking up for the last 30 days, like trying to put on as much weight as possible, and I've gained a ton of muscle. And when I start cutting down, I don't know how to cut body fat without also cutting muscle. Is there a way to tweak my macros or tweak my workouts to allow me to maintain all this muscle, but still lean down at the same time without losing a ton of strength? Let me know.
So, as always, when we give anything related to body composition, et cetera, that's not necessarily our area of expertise specifically. We're not nutritionists. We're not that kind of stuff. But I do like this question, Chris, because I'm sure it is something that you've dealt with, especially with football players.
Yeah.
Like adding mass in the offseason and then ultimately getting to your playing weight, which is essentially what Nick's doing. And he obviously did it in his career as a runner. Now he's doing it at a much heavier weight because he's trying to be a power lifter. So I thought this was a really interesting question. I'm curious what your thoughts are on it as he gets ready to go, I think in a couple of weeks for his first ever powerlifting competition.
Yeah. So, all right. So, this question is twofold, and I think it's kind of appropriate that Nick would ask something like that because the biggest thing that we did with Nick was also with Lorenzo, and this is the person who he should probably ask because Lorenzo was somebody who came down from 300, came all the way down into 230s, and kept his strength and his speed. And the way that he did that was a couple of things. One, when your volume drops, you have to keep the intensity high, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I think Nick is starting to learn how to lift heavy and empty his tank in 3 reps, right? That's something that he didn't know how to do before, right? Like he'll even tell you, like, I've never been a good starter in any of my races. Well,
right.
in this type of lifting, the start of the race is the race, right? In this particular lift, if you've got a 3-rep set and you've got 15 reps for the whole workout, you've got to be lifting a significant amount of weight. And I think he's starting to get used to that. The other part of that is like, not only does nutrition become vital, but the nutrition before, after, and during the workout becomes vital, right? So now you have to think about what supplementation you're taking during the workout. So I remember, like, Zoe had a Ziploc bag of pills of BCAAs that he would take. It was the Poliquin BCAAs that he was taking, literally like in between sets. We would have a timer go off every like 15 minutes in the workout that says, all right, go take 6 grams of BCAAs or whatever it is that you got to go take. So if we were working out for an hour, there were 3 breaks that we had. And then, obviously he would finish up with his shake and all that other stuff. So I think that stuff becomes really, really important, because you got to feed those muscles while you're stressing them. And yeah, I mean, somebody like Natalie is probably going to give you a little bit more information on the in-workout nutrition, which is a very unique thing, because what he's trying to do is a very unique thing. Like, most people are just trying to lose weight, gain weight, or whatever. But for somebody like that, or for somebody like Zoe, it was, hey, I need to keep every ounce of strength that I have, but I got to be 20, 30 pounds lighter. How am I going to do that? And that's how we did it.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that, like, for the average person listening, like, wait, that's what I want to do. I want to stay strong and lose weight. Like, that is in a different version of the most common goal that people come into a gym with. But when you're coming in as a general population person, like, just work out. Like, if you add that strength and add that muscle mass and you eat right, like, you're going to drop weight and you're going to get stronger. It's different for someone like Lorenzo or someone like Nick, who's already so strong. Like, they've learned how to cap out their bodies in certain events. Obviously, Nick is shifting from an endurance event to a strength event. So in some ways, he's just got to keep lifting, right? Like, no matter what he does, he's not close to his, or at this point, he might be getting closer, but like what his true maximum potential is as a lifter. So if he just keeps lifting heavy, like, he's going to get stronger. And then, the nutrition element, which he should absolutely consult a nutritionist on, or a dietitian on, a sports nutritionist, sports dietitian, is going to that's going to dictate the weight element of it. But what a general population person needs to do versus like an athlete who's talking about the 1% margin is completely different. And I think it's important to note that you should have a professional guiding both sides, right? Like, you should always have someone monitoring your high-end strength training as a trainer, whether it's a trainer or whatever else, and then a nutritionist on the diet end, and balance those out, make sure that you're properly fueled. And that I think is the ultimate, like, number one takeaway, is make sure that as you start to cut back your calories, that you don't go too far, because if you're not properly fueled for any workout, no matter what level, you got absolutely no shot of succeeding. Speaking of Lorenzo, did you really think that we were going to do this not hear from the one and only Lorenzo Alexander?
Hey, what's going on, guys? Just wanted to say what's up, wanted to check in. I know you guys are celebrating 200 episodes, which is amazing. I remember when that thing first started back in Virginia in my basement, and it is really a pleasure and an honor to see how far you guys have come, the relationships that you've created. And really, I just want to thank you guys for the impact that you've had on my career and my development as a player on and off the field as well. And in that regard, I wanted to ask you guys a question. As guys transition away from the field, or you maybe get older and you retire from either high school or playing ball in college, how important is it to know your why and give purpose to your training, and how do you go about achieving that? Appreciate you guys. Can't wait to hear your answer, and I wish you all the best in the future. Peace.
Family right there. Lorenzo Alexander. I think the why part on some level is like really straightforward. It's the thing that keeps you going. It's when you're, to go back to the Derek Carr quote, when you're at the bottom of the squat rack with 225 on your back and you're in the hole and you're going, my God, why am I getting out of here? Like, why am I even here in the first place? And how the hell am I going to get out? Like, that's the thing that can drive you to continue towards whatever that is, your goal, your mission, your purpose. And I think in fitness, in life, in family and relationships, in personal growth. Like when you do something with a purpose, you're always going to do it better. And so being able to clearly establish that purpose, and that's actually something I think I learned through conversations on this podcast. We had a really great conversation one time about kind of the pillars of happiness. And when you have that purpose, when you have it, something that's driving you, something that also keeps you focused, it's a lot easier to successfully navigate towards a goal.
Yeah, man, this is a deep question. I'm gonna try to keep this lighthearted because this is episode 200. We're having a great time. But Zoe is family to me. He's a brother of mine, and he knows that. I've told him many times, and we've had deep conversations about stuff that I've been going through recently, stuff that I've gone through over the years. And knowing your why is such a huge question. We talked about those pillars of happiness being safety, security, purpose, and belonging. And for a long time, well, I felt like I had all three of those things, and then it was slightly taken away from me, partly because of me, because I moved down to Richmond, Virginia, and the circle of friends that I was rolling in that kept me in my why, that wasn't there anymore, and that led to me to be disconnected, and then I started to forget the person or the people that I was trying to serve, right? So for me, I'm a servant. That's who I am. That's what I do. That's what I want to do. More than anything, I'm not a trainer. I'm a servant. I serve my clients with the best of my abilities, the best way that I know how. And for a while, I got caught up into serving this person that people called Trainer Gorres. I started believing the shit that people said about me. I started believing that, oh, wow, I am good at this. I am great at this, and maybe I should start serving myself instead of everybody else the way that I always did. And then the competitiveness in me started to come out, and like I wanted to be the best trainer and get recognition for this and that. And then, that led me down a very, very lonely road with nobody to latch onto, and then it's easy to forget your why. So now, as me reconnecting with my friends and reconnecting with my family and refinding my purpose in life and knowing my why is knowing the people that I serve. Number one, my wife and my children, right? Knowing why, hey, I work out because I want to be the best version of myself. Because for me to be able to pour into their cup, my cup has to be full. And for my cup to be full, I have to be right mentally, which I'm getting right, physically, which I'm getting right, spiritually and emotionally. I have to be full in all four of those phases. And that's why I work out, and that's my why, so that I can pour into other people. Because if I don't do that for myself, then I'm going to break down the way that I did. And I'm happy to talk about that. And I'm glad that I went through the shit that I went through. And I'm glad that I had people like Lorenzo and people like you to bring me back to, hey, like this is who you are, and you can be that person again. Just get back to doing the things that you used to do. So I definitely appreciate that from Zoe, and I know he's listening to this answer.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that, it doesn't always have to be that deep either, right? Like everyone should have on some level a driving force that is deep within them, that is kind of their purpose. But you can also set a goal, right? Like you can also have that race out there. You can have the game. You can have the team that you want to make. You can have a buddy that you want to beat, like in friendly competition. Like you can have a more, or I guess a less serious goal. I'll put it that way. A less life or death feeling kind of goal out there to motivate you. And I think that can still give you purpose. And then at that point, the actions become very similar, where you are able to focus, you're able to realize what's important and what's not, what's going to help you ultimately reach your goals, what's not. And so I think that why is at the center of peak performance.
Right. But for me, like with Zoe and the stages that we're in our lives, and we talk a little bit about that with like somebody like Heyo, right? It's like, hey, like this is the purpose, and that's what brings us joy. Because when you're trying to find joy, like I'm not saying that don't keep things lighthearted. Like obviously keep things lighthearted.
Right.
But when you
you can do both, right? You can do all that.
Right. But when you don't have that thing that hey, this is who I aspire to be, and these are all the things that I do that help me to be who I aspire to be, versus like if you're just focused on these little things, then the results matter way too much. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Then it becomes about like did I do as well as I thought that I was going to do versus that's not why I was doing it in the first place. You know what I mean? So
Right.
that's why I say that.
Yeah, and that kind of gets to the core of Zoe's question too, is like a former athlete, and we talked about this a lot with Heyo.
Yeah.
You know, what happens when you don't have a team to make, or you don't have a performer, your trophy you're trying to win?
Right.
Like, sure, you can if you're Heather, you can sign up for the Boston Marathon, or you can sign up for American Ninja Warrior, or you can sign up for both at the same time. But what happens when
Right.
you're done with Ninja Warrior, you're done with Boston? You just sign up for another race? Okay, well, what happens when there isn't another race? What is the thing then that is going to keep you going? And that I think gets to the core of Lorenzo's why is why isn't just playing NFL football for him. It's a lot deeper. It's family, and that's why we love him.
And for him and I, you know, we're called to be the men that our family need us to be leaders, to set an example for our children, to show them what it means to give your best and be the best version of yourself. And that's what all this is about.
Yep. A lot of times tapping into that can be easier with athletes. Another former NFL guy has a question about what about when it's not an athlete?
Chris, Craig, what's up, guys? It's Logan Paulson. Want to say congrats on the 200th episode. My question for you guys is this. Obviously, promoting engagement with populations that aren't doing their sporting activity for professional, right? Or they're not super dialed in, right? They're just out there to have fun and kind of get a little bit better. Because I find that the longer those types of people stay with something, the better their results are. So what are your guys' best tools for making that happen? Thanks, guys. Congrats again.
Logan, athlete turned trainer, now working not necessarily just in the athletic world, which I think is awesome because so many former players turn to just like, oh, I'm going to go train. Like Logan would be like, yeah, I'm going to become a trainer who works with football players and trains tight ends. And that's my thing as a former tight end, but he's working with everybody. And so I think that's a great question. And I think that something he said actually in the question is in many ways the key to the answer, which is, can you have people enjoy it along the way and feel success so that they stay engaged longer and enjoy it more and experience more success? So I think that there is a real giving people in programming and, of course, in personality, giving people some of what they want and some of what they need, making sure that they get the things that they came in for, that they feel like they're getting their money's worth in what is ultimately a business transaction, even though you want to develop personal relationships and all that kind of stuff. But what is ultimately a business transaction, they are deciding whether or not they want to spend their money with you. And then some of what they need so that they see the results. That even if they came in thinking that they needed to do thing X, Y, and Z, and you know it's A, B, and C, can you do, X, Y, and C, and then maybe next week you do Z and A and B, and they have a positive experience that they enjoy, they ultimately over time learn to trust you, and they get where they want to go. And there's obviously a lot that goes into that of being a good trainer and knowing what they need in the first place. But at the end of the day, that ability to connect with people, to be able to explain things in a way that's describes to them what the benefit is for them and ultimately execute, I think are the kind of the three things that I would say are success or make for a good, successful general population trainer.
Yeah, I think that we live in this world. In the training world, our world is a world of delayed gratification, right? Like we don't have immediate rewards. You can't come in and do a workout and immediately perform better than the way that you performed before that workout, right? Like it's a sustained commitment that it takes to get the results that you want. When you're an athlete, you have this a natural competition schedule where you get to test drive your results, right? Like you get to go into the season and be like, hey, did all that shit that I did in the off season, did it work?
Right.
Either it did or it didn't, right? And if it did, you're like, man, yeah, I can't wait to do that again. I can't wait to do that better. I know who I'm going to invite to the workouts, this and that, right? So one of the things that you have to do for general population athletes, if they don't have something that points out their results, you have to create that, right? You have to create that moment that gives them that gratification, right? And it starts with what Joel Sanders was talking about, is like understanding what it is that they're doing this in the first place, right? So if they told you, hey, they want to do this because they want to look great in a bikini, cool. We got to take pictures in the bikini one day, right? Like that's what we're going to do. Or, hey, I want to be able to play a round of golf without back pain. Okay, cool. When are we going to go play golf, right? So we have to create that experience where they get to feel the rewards, because they're not going to feel the rewards in the gym. And a lot of times, like, the people who are training with you, they feel like, man, this isn't getting any better. I still feel like shit after these workouts. Well, yeah, because the workouts are a lot harder than when you came in here. The first day you came in here, we walked for 10 minutes and did like 3 sets of push-ups and you were dead. And now we're doing all these supersets and all these different things. And yeah, you're still dead. It's the same feeling, but you don't realize that you're doing way more than you did in that first day. Right. So we have to create those moments of like, aha, like, yeah, that worked, right? Like I just went to Disney World with the kids or my grandchildren and I walked for 3 days straight and my back is fine. My knees are fine, right? For Logan, for a long time, it was that first time you pancake blocked somebody in the preseason. It was like, yeah, I was living in the weight room. Where was you? You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, so we got to create that for the Gen Pop.
Yeah, the term I was searching for was I was talking that hit me, of course, 4 seconds after I was done, was like you have to make them feel success. Yeah. And understanding, and this goes to Joel's theory on getting to know your clients and what I was saying about really understanding who you're working with. Different people can tolerate failure at different levels. And so a lot of athletes, like extremely high-level athletes, they tolerate a ton of failure. Or they redefine what success is really well. Nick was actually talking about this when we were down in Phoenix, and I think actually one of his fans was just like randomly on the track and was like, "Hey, I love your stuff," and you know they were talking with them, and he was having this conversation with Zoe because Zoe was talking about the competitiveness of an NFL game where you win or you lose, right? And it's this binary where half the people on the field win, half the people in the field lose. And Nick was saying, well, for me, if I just focus on that, I don't win a ton of races. But if I go out in PR, am I going to be happy or am I sad that I didn't win the race? Right. Like, and in track, athletes have to kind of play that mind game of evaluating their own personal performance regardless of the result, because otherwise they're just going to go basically go nuts because the failure would become overwhelming. And so can you define success in a very clear way that helps your clients achieve it? And can you understand how to balance success and failure to make them feel good and encouraged, but also occasionally that failure is needed for motivation? And so I think the balance of success and failure is ultimately the best way to think about that in terms of Gen Pop clients. All right, next question from another long time friend and friend of the pod, the one, the only, Michael Cummings.
Coach Cummings here, a.k.a. Michael the Trainer, a.k.a. MC, Director of Performance Training over at Skills. So excited to be part of the 200th episode of Train with the Best. Chris and Craig, give yourselves a round of applause. That's a huge accomplishment. I love the podcast. So my mailbag question is this. You guys have interviewed tons of amazing people. You've been able to travel and see what everybody's doing. You have your thumb on the pulse of the industry for performance training. So the question I have for you is this. What current methodology or what trend have you heard that's here to stay and not just gone tomorrow?
I love this question. And I actually love that it's from Michael. You have an answer ready? If not, I got mine ready to go.
I have to take a second to get over the fact that Michael has transformed into a Grand Theft Auto character. So I gotta take a second. Let me absorb that for a second and then think of my answer, because he's full Grand Theft Auto. Like he's got the chain. He like everything about him in that video says California. You know?
That's amazing. Right by the pool down
right by the pool. He's got the hat on. So
that's incredible. That's incredible. The reason I love that this question's from Michael is it's because I think it's like his current passion project. Yeah. I think more cognitive training is where we're headed, especially within the sports performance space. Gen Pop training is one thing, but in the sports performance space, I think we are starting to realize that you are better off helping an athlete make a faster and better decision than we are making them faster. Like, obviously, physical traits and characteristics are super important. And on some level, there's like a prerequisite that if you're not fast enough or you're not strong enough, you can't get to a certain level. Like, I can't play in the NBA because I don't jump high enough and I'm not fast enough. Not to mention the lack of requisite skill, dribbling, shooting, etc. But assuming that you have the baseline, the thing that's the separator is how quickly and how well you make decisions in basically any sport, especially basketball, soccer, decisions that are happening in a fluid type of situation. Football, it's more scripted, obviously, but you still have to read and make a very quick series of decisions, basically no matter what your position is. And the ability to not make mental mistakes, if we can train that, not just as sport coaches, which are training it in practice, but if we can train the actual decision-making process and clarify that for athletes, I think that is a game changer in training. And I know with Michael and some of the stuff he's working on with skills and with BlazePod, the cognitive training element is something that is, I know, a huge passion of his. And I think that the more we study the nervous system and the more we study how humans make decisions, the better off, or the higher level of athletic performance we'll be able to see.
Yeah, really good answer. So from the fitness perspective, I think general pop fitness is very cyclical. Like, we go through these cycles of this is really popular and then this is really popular. And then what was popular is now popular again. So you go through this cycle of mind, body, Pilates, yoga studio, cycle studio, kettlebell classes, boxing, and then it just goes around and around and around, right? Because, I mean, honestly, like that's probably a good thing for fitness in the general population, because people want to have new stimulus and new things to keep them engaged. And you're right, from one of the trends that we've seen over the last however many years is the skill trainer in sports, right? Like in basketball, guys like Drew Hanlon, the skills trainers like Dave Copeland-Smith for Beast Mode Soccer, the skills trainers that I see out in the football world teaching wide receivers how to run routes. And a lot of that has devolved into nonsense that we see on Instagram with people just putting out random shit where like you do all kinds of weird things and jump through hoops. But the best of the best are the ones who are blending that skill development with decision making, because skills don't live by themselves on the field, right? Like if that was the case, then every national championship would be played around cones, and we don't play around cones. Right? We play around people. We play in a game. You have to recognize where you are. So if you look at even like the best, I've seen a lot of pretty trash wide receiver coaches out there. And I'm comfortable talking about wide receiver coaches because I played wide receiver. I played the position. I know a lot about the position. I know also a lot about the soccer and the basketball world, but I'm going to stay in my world for right now. I see a lot of trash wide receiver coaches that are just having their kids do all this weird footwork stuff, run routes that don't exist, and are developing skills that are not actually useful in a football game. And it's one thing to go that way, but you have to bring it back to something. Like, bring it back to something that's real. Versus I watch the good wide receiver coaches, and they do bring it back to something that's real. Okay, here's where this skill is here's where you're going to use it. Here's how routes actually work, right? Like, you don't just get open, right? It's one thing to get open, but you have to be open on time. That means that if you're route number 3, if you're read number 3 in this progression, don't be open right away. You'd be stupid to be open right away, because now by the time the quarterback comes back to look at you, you're covered again, right? And these are things
something we talked about Randall Cobb on an episode of this podcast.
Exactly. And so understanding how coverages work, right? Like, being a good wide receiver is understanding the route progressions and how coverages work more than being able to tap dance in and out of a circle, right? So those are things that I see that trend of skill trainer. That skill trainer is not going away, and it's there for every sport. Every sport has their skill trainers, and the good ones are the ones who are bringing in the decision-making element and bringing it back into real-life game situations that can be used.
The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Momentous. Now, I've told you, if you've been a long-time listener, whether it's 100 episodes, 150, 200, still crazy, this is episode 200. But I've been telling you, like, Momentous is the top of the line, the best of the best. Don't believe me? What if I told you that it's in 72% of NFL locker rooms? Would you believe me then? Because guess what? Momentous products are in 72% of NFL locker rooms. I will say this from personal experience. I have seen just in the last month and a half, really since we had Patrick on the podcast, Patrick Dixon from Momentous, their director of applied sports science, I've seen a huge jump in the consistency of my recovery by adding vitamin D and magnesium at night with my Elite Sleep. The Elite Sleep changed my life forever. My recoveries have been so much consistently higher on my whoops since I started Elite Sleep, but they've taken even another leap since I've added that magnesium and vitamin D. So if you're new to this podcast, make sure you go back just a couple of episodes. Check out Patrick Dixon from Momentous on the pod. He was so incredible in laying out what your daily supplementation would look like. And of course, we're going to hook you up. So go to livemomentous.com, use the code TRAINWITHTHEBEST25. Train with the Best 25, livemomentous.com, 25% off your first order and your subscription, 15% off all the refills. That's Train with the Best 25 at livemomentous.com. The Train with the Best podcast is brought to you by Blaze Pod, and it's appropriate that Michael Cummings, whose question you may have heard or you're about to hear, I don't know exactly how this pod's going to get edited because for once I'm actually recording the ads before the podcast. It's appropriate that his question is going to be about training methods that are here to stay because Michael is huge on cognitive training, and Blaze Pod, which is a company that Michael's involved with, is the best way to do this. I think that the biggest trend in sports training that is starting to emerge and is going to become significantly greater as we progress forward as an industry is going to be training decision making. The best athletes are the smartest ones, the ones that can make the right decision as quickly as possible. And BlazePod is the best system to be able to train that on a visual cue basis. Do you go on red, stop on green? Oh, that's backwards from what it usually is. Can you make that distinction? Do you touch here with your, if it's a blue light, touch with your left foot? If it's a purple light, touch with your right? That's the kind of thing that you could assign an athlete to do using BlazePod. It's an amazing system, also great for warm-ups to get cognitive function and coordination rolling. And of course, we got the hookup for you. Go to blazepod.com. TWTB is the code for 15% off. That's the best reactive training system on the market. BlazePod. Blazepod.com. The code is TWTB. Continuing on our mailbag extravaganza here, episode 200 of the Train with the Best podcast. Chris, when you were out, this guy stepped up. He was our first guest co-host. He's been on the pod actually a couple of times. Really good friend, awesome trainer who's doing big things out at Healthy Baller in Maryland. Wes Dunning's got a question for us.
Craig, Chris, what's up, man? This is Wes. I just wanted to reach out and congratulate the both of you guys on the incredible success that you guys have had with the Train with the Best podcast. Man, 200 episodes is truly impressive. And I got to commend the both of you guys on how much you guys have contributed, you know, the value that each episode brings, what you guys all bring to the table to the whole fitness industry with each episode and all the content that you guys put out. And what an honor it's been to be a part of 2 episodes, man, and just following along with the whole journey. Question I got for both of you guys, for each other, man, what would you say is most impressive for you, Craig, over to Chris with how he's grown kind of on the media and production sides of things? And Chris, what are you most impressed with for Craig, knowing that he's transitioned from the media side onto this training side? You guys have kind of both infiltrated each other's worlds and have done it so well. So, you know, once again, congratulations to the both of you, and I'm looking forward to a lot more success with the Train with the Best podcast.
Salute to the one and only Wes Dunning. That was great. Appreciate you, man.
Hey, shout out to everybody over there at Healthy Baller too.
Yeah.
I mean, all those guys doing it big over there in Maryland.
You wanna crack first at this, or you want me to gloat about you?
Let's let you go. I want to think of something really good.
Okay, so I think that Chris's ability to remain natural and remain himself is really special in the media space. It's something that I think a lot of people think they can do, and then they get into media, whether it's radio, television, podcast, whatever, and they become this acted version of themselves where it's like, oh, I have to put on my podcast voice. And it's like, no, you just show up and you're yourself. And if your personality is worth a shit, then people will listen. And obviously you have an amazing personality that is, I think people if you're a long time listener, like you get it every once in a while, like, you know, you'll pop into some accent or you'll do something
Right.
that it's like, it's not just like straight knowledge. It's not just straight this, like there's real personality to you as a trainer and as a coach. And that comes across really well in the podcast. You've taken it to a completely new level with the acting, with the voices in your head on the reels. Like that's honestly one of my favorite things that has come out of the last 5 years. Again, recency bias there, but those are fucking hilarious. So yeah, I think your ability to remain true, even when you're acting, even when you're doing that stuff, like to remain true, and it's not even true, to be authentic as a media person with no like media background, no broadcast background, has always really impressed me. And as we've expanded out into different media, video, Instagram, reels, all this kind of stuff, for you to showcase that even more has been really impressive.
Yeah, for me, I think that it's funny because you've referenced recency bias in this episode, and that's like one of the biggest things that we deal with in our industry, and that's actually another skit that's going to be coming up soon on the Instagram reels. But over the past several years, we've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people, absorb a lot of information, learn a lot of new things. And I think the thing that's impressed me the most is your ability to take new information and mix it into all the stuff that we knew before, so that we don't just jump to conclusion one after another. So for you to be able to take new information from Momentous and blend that with the information that we learned from Super Coffee, and blend that, with, or blend the things that we learned with Natalie, with the stuff that we learned from Megan and the stuff that we learned from Sean Pena. Like that's to be able to take all of that and remember all of that stuff and not jump quickly into conclusions. I think that's a skill that really is, because, I see so many trainers go to one seminar and they're like, oh, this is it. This is the answer. I got the answer to everything now. And it's like, no, like that was just meant to be a piece of the puzzle. And your understanding that everything is just a piece of the puzzle is really top notch.
I appreciate that. And it's funny that you say it is a piece of the puzzle, because I was thinking, like, as you're talking there, I was like, it is a giant puzzle. It's like, yeah. where does this information fit?
And it's always moving.
But I go back always to literally episode 1, methods are many, principles are few. Methods don't always last, principles always do. And if you take a piece of information in and funnel it through the lens of your principles, you can typically figure out where it goes in the puzzle a lot easier. And that's how I've tried to approach it. And I definitely learned that from you. But the fact that I'm apparently doing it well enough that you've noticed means a lot to me. So I appreciate that. One of my best friends. There's no way we could do this episode without this guy in the podcast. So walking down the streets of DC, he shouted. I just want people to know that are not watching the YouTube version of this. What you're about to hear was literally shouted walking down the streets of DC.
Craig, Chris, family. First and foremost, happy 200 episodes. I remember day 1, and now look, 200 episodes later. That's absolutely amazing. B. Allen here. My mailbag question is, what's the number one thing each of you has learned from each other throughout these 200 episodes? Let me know. Let the people know. B. Allen here. Big love. All love. God bless, fellas.
You got to love his energy, man. He's always got it. He's always got it. It doesn't matter.
Always. 100% of the time. It's actually terrifying, but 100% of the time. Love you, B. I'll let you. I'm going to make you go. I'm not let you. I'm going to make you go first.
All right. So I got to go first. So the question was, what's the thing that I've learned the most from you?
Yeah. Good luck.
I think that I don't know how to word this. I'm gonna take a second because I want to word this the right way. Right. I think that what I've learned from you, both on and off the air, is that you can strive to be excellent while also giving yourself grace. That's the biggest thing that I learned from you, is that, like, hey, look, we should strive to be better, and we should be relentless in that pursuit to be better. But in the moments that we fail to be better, we deserve grace. We deserve forgiveness. We don't need to beat ourselves up over it. And then we pick ourselves up again, and then we try. better, because like for a long time, I was always like, hey, if you failed, you failed. Like that was it. And you have taught me, and Rachel has taught me that because again, like, so for me, it's either you try hard and you don't accept failure, or you accept failure because you don't want to try hard. And there is an in between there, right? Like, I can try to be the best version of myself and give myself some forgiveness and some grace when I fall short of those expectations. That's the biggest thing that I've learned from you.
I'll expand on that just because I think it's actually an important concept. I think that I was actually having a conversation similar to that, or having a conversation to that end with someone today who's younger in the media industry, and I think I learned that lesson myself early in my media career, because there's just stuff that you can't control. Like, I work on the media side of things in an industry that is brutal. Like, the media industry blows. It's really hard. There's not a lot of jobs. There's fewer and fewer jobs by the day, even though there are more opportunities because of podcasting and all these digital elements. But like, there's only so many radio spots, and the number of radio spots there were 20 years ago compared to now is less than half because of syndication. And so occasionally, not even occasionally, commonly, you have people that work really hard and do really good work, and they don't advance in their careers and ultimately decide to leave the industry, not because they weren't good, not because they didn't work hard, because they didn't get a break. And I think I learned that really early in my career, was like, I have to control what I can control. And then when I fail, or when I don't achieve the thing that I want to, well, that's already happened. So what am I going to do? Am I going to sit there and not to say that you can't mourn a loss of any kind, but like, you have the option to sit there or keep going. And I think that that's really important for people to understand in fitness, for people to understand in life. And I appreciate you saying that a lot. I would say for me, the biggest thing I've learned from you, like we'd be here for hours. This is already a very long podcast, which is fine. It's episode 200 and, woohoo, 200. But like, the amount of stuff that I've learned from you is impossible to describe. We'd be here for literally ever. But to simple it down to like a favorite thing beyond the principles, methods thing that we just talked about, I would say the devastating power of simplicity. Long wind-up answer to get to that, right? The irony. Maybe I need to learn the lesson better.
Right.
But the devastating irony of simplicity. If you can get to the point and explain something in a way that truly explains it, not a million hypotheticals, not a million tangents, but get to the point. And that requires a level of understanding to really understand what you're talking about, to be able to distill it down. You have to understand before you can distill. You have to be able to understand the complexities before you can simplify. And so I think that power that you have to be able to explain things so clearly and so concisely often frames my thinking and allows me to hopefully do the same for my clients and in other aspects of my life as well.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool that you learned that, because we talk about that a lot. Like the highest form of complexity is actually simplicity. So I'm it's cool what we've picked up from each other for sure over the last 200 episodes and what's happened in between all those episodes.
No doubt. All right, that's enough serious stuff. Insert Bryan Myers for fun.
All right, here we go.
Craig and Chris, congratulations. 200 episodes of the Train with the Best podcast, educating, inspiring, motivating us through all of the incredible content that you put out into the world. I just want to come on here and say congratulations. And I also have a question for you. My question is, who is the best entertainer of our generation, and why is it Beyonce? See you guys soon.
That's the kind of stuff you go to a CEO for. We got former athletes, we got trainers, we got No. We need a CEO for the hard-hitting questions. Bryan Myers, CEO of Solidcore. By the way, also one of my absolute all-time favorite episodes was with Bryan. He's right. It's Beyonce. That's it. That's the correct answer. She is actually like it. No shit. Kind of the stuff we just talked about with like the ability to fiercely be authentically yourself, no matter whether you are doing something fun and lighthearted or something serious, or like as you tell stories, as you do this, like she's the best, and she's ridiculously skilled and talented. Like, this doesn't need to be a long answer. It is Beyonce. Bryan, thanks for the question.
Yeah, it's Beyonce. Everybody on this earth connects with Beyonce in some way, right? Like you're either gonna sing with her, you're gonna dance with her, you're gonna feel her stories, you're gonna do something, and that's why the answer is Beyonce.
Also, if the answer wasn't Beyonce,
the Beehive is coming after us, right? So we're not.
Yeah.
I'm not messing with the Beehive.
Yeah, 0% chance, and that would include my fiance, and that is actually where we end the podcast. She gets to ask 2 questions because she's the third employee of this operation. Employee is a very loose term. IRS/legal folks, if you're listening, not an employee.
Right.
Participant, contributor to this operation. And so Rachel had 2 questions, and who am I to say no to that? So wrap up with these 2.
Hi, I'm Rachel. Why am I doing the hi? All right, ignore this. 3, 2, 1. Welcome into the Train with the Best pod. I'm Rachel Sandler, soon to be Hoffman, and my question for the 2 of you is: you both work with Gen Pop clients in fitness and also professional athletes in fitness. And having trained both populations, what's one thing you wish the other learned from their opposite? So what's one thing pro athletes should know from Gen Pop, and what could Gen Pop learn from your pro athletes?
I think it's a really cool question. And I'm not just sucking up because I'm going to marry her. I think that's actually a really, really cool question. I wish that Gen Pop would, and I feel like the Gen Pop learning from athletes is easier. What athletes learn from Gen Pop is actually that made me scratch my head a little bit more.
That's the one that's making me think a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, from the Gen Pop from athletes, I wish they would learn what is possible, like the level of work that it takes to be that great. And like, if you truly have a goal and you come in, you're like, I want this more than anything. Like, you have to understand the level of work and dedication, and not that you have to like quit your job and become a professional fitness person to, be able to do what they do because they, play in the NFL or professional tennis player or whatever it is. But the true dedication to their craft of what it takes to be elite, because pro athletes are like, unlike the average, like, sure, there are elite accountants, there are elite bankers, there are elite every profession in the world. But just being a professional in those professions, the collecting a check doesn't mean that you're elite. If you're collecting a check playing sports, you're elite. You are the absolute best of the best. And so when you're working on that craft, for the average person to understand the level of dedication, insight, skill, all those things that it takes to succeed at that top 1% or the 1% of the 1% level, I think that's a pretty obvious, straightforward answer. The other one's a lot harder. Do you have one, or should I keep rambling and try to spit one out?
Yeah. First of all, I'm gonna reword what you just did, because I don't like to say that Gen Pop people aren't elite at what they do, because they totally could be, right? So I don't want to.
They could be, but inherently, when you work out, like when you're a professional athlete, like inherently, you have made it to a level that most people don't.
Yeah, you have a level of God-given talent that that you started off at a higher point. What I would say is this: I would say that I wish general population could learn from professional athletes what true competitiveness is. Like, true competitiveness is you competing with the standard, which is the best version of yourself. It's not you comparing yourself to others. Right, like the people who are, I see so many people like throw fits and like act childish when they lose games, or they act childish at their kids' games, right? And they think that that's being competitive and pushing them to be competitive and petty, and like really all you're doing is teaching your kids how to not control their emotions and throw a fit every time shit doesn't go their way, or like the fact that you have to unsolicited claim that you're competitive, right? Like, the only reason why you would tell somebody you're competitive is because you want them to know that, and the only reason why you would want other people to know that is because you're insecure about that. So stop telling people you're competitive, right? Like, true competitive people don't tell you that. They just compete with you and they beat you, or they don't, and then they go work on their own craft to be a better version of themselves, right? So true competitiveness amongst people like Nick Simmons, Lorenzo Alexander, Yael Averbuch, all the amazing athletes that I've ever had a chance to work with, they're competing with themselves to be the best version of themselves. And however that stacks up against their competition is how it stacks up. But they know that's all they can control, right? So
to me, competitiveness is part of that equation I talked about, but that was much more succinctly and much more tactfully put than you said it.
The thing that I would ask athletes to learn from Gen Pop is just a little bit more of the perspective of what life really means, right? Like understanding that you are more than just what you do, right? Like you can be involved in a community, and people can love you and appreciate you for who you are, not just what you're capable of. I think that there are not enough athletes that understand that, and they lose themselves in that identity into thinking that this is all I am, this is all I'll ever be, and there's so much more to life than just what you're good at.
Yeah. I also wish that they would learn that it's okay to take an off day. I actually have an Instagram post that I've half typed out right now, and it'll be up by the time this podcast goes out, or shortly after if I save it for the morning. But the average person, they wake up, they don't feel good. They shoot me a text. They go, "Hey, like I don't think I can come in today. I don't feel good." And as not even pro athletes, but like this is a plague in youth athletics. Like the idea that if you take an off day, everything is going to go to hell. Like you're never going to make the team. You're never going to be able to achieve insert any goal here. Your coach is going to hate you. Or some coaches, by the way, the ones driving that like your coach will hate you. Like it's just such a warped sense of reality. And the theme of the Instagram post that I'm going to put up that I'll repeat here is that there's only one way one workout makes or breaks your goals. And that's the one that you shouldn't have done because it's the one you got hurt in.
Yeah.
And so the cumulative effect of consistency is super important. That's not to say you can just be lackadaisical with your workout, but you have to understand when to push and when to not. And I think it's a lot more common for Gen Pop folks to be like, I don't feel like good today, so I'm not going to work out. And obviously that's not true across everybody. There are people that are compulsive, and that's a whole separate like a literal mental health conversation. But generally speaking, general population is going to be like, yeah, I don't feel very good today, so I'm not going to go to the gym. Where the athlete might be like, I have to work out. And it's like,
yeah, you gotta
actually you don't. Yeah. Actually you don't. All right, last question of the pod. A business question from the third member of our business.
Okay, but seriously, as the only other person who works with the two of you at Train with the Best, I want to take a second to congratulate you on 200 incredible episodes and all the things you've done outside of those episodes. You put so much of yourselves into this work, and it really shows. That also entitles me to ask another question. And so looking at your success, looking at your growth and your journey, I want to know what's one thing for Train with the Best you wish you had kind of waited to do, you delayed, and conversely, what's one thing you wish you had done sooner in order to be successful?
I actually think it's the same thing.
It's actually the same thing. I said the same thing. I was thinking it's the same thing.
YouTube stuff?
Committing to more of a presence on YouTube, right? Because we did it too early.
Yep.
And we didn't do it early enough.
Right. We did it too early, right. and then we let it die, and then we didn't get back into it soon enough when we should have, when we were actually at a point where we were ready to do it.
Right. Like I feel like we did it. We jumped the gun on it because we didn't really commit to putting out the content that we needed to put out. And like we should have been recording these podcasts from the jump probably, right? Like, all right, maybe not from the jump, but starting from maybe episode 100, we could have been recording these podcasts and posting them on YouTube, right? And then when we finally did the YouTube, it was like, all right, let's just throw some shit out there and people will watch it. And like, no, it's way more than that, right?
So, and even the non-podcast content where we were like, let's do these things, and we didn't really do the homework to understand. And I credit Nick with this tremendously, and that way we didn't wait too long. We should have sought out someone like Nick sooner, who's had so much success in the space, and that's something that I think we were capable of sooner. But I give Nick a ton of credit for kind of guiding us, and he's taken some time away, off mic, to chat with me about some strategy and different things, and to be like, yeah, you guys can do this, and to do it well on the front end and like picking good things and making it look really good and professional, but also on the back end to understand like what it is that we're actually trying to accomplish and make us think about who we are and what we want to be putting out there and like what our mission is with Train with the Best. Like we did it haphazardly too soon, and then we waited too long to do it right. And I'm happy that we're now at a point that we are, and that this thing is growing in a big way.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because we're at episode 200, but I also feel like we're just getting started with like hitting the ground and really hitting our stride with so much more that we have to offer. And part of that too is like my reinvigorated presence on social media, right? Like, because for the last couple of years, I've just kind of been like, I don't really like social media, but I'm starting to embrace it again and starting to post a little bit more material and starting to feel more comfortable being authentic. Like you said, like, I'm just going to be who I am. I don't have to be this person that people think that I am, or that I think that people think that I am, or start getting into weird philosophies there. But I think that we're just hitting our stride, and this is episode 200, but we're just getting started, and I can't wait to do another 200 episodes.
Indeed. I guess math-wise, it would be about another 5 years. Maybe not, because we went through different phases with the podcast too, where like, we were kind of really haphazardly inconsistent, where we've been every week. There was a point where schedule-wise, it was just more feasible for us to be consistent every other week.
Right.
Now we're at a point where every week, Mondays, we have it ready to go, and
right.
That profession, that is something else that like I wish I had taken more seriously sooner. Of like really like I almost on some level took for granted that we're good at what we do, right? Like we knew that if we turned on the mics and started recording, like we'd produce something that was pretty good. I know enough about audio stuff that I make it sound like a professional podcast, but really professional, like thinking of it as like a professionalized type of thing, as opposed to just like something that's kind of fun. I wish we had done sooner because I think there's opportunity there, but watching this grow now, like I don't like the good thing is the only harm I think it did was the time. Like that's opportunity costs. It's not something that hurt us in the long run. And I'm really excited now that as we've done those things, we've taken those steps, that it's really paying off. And we're doing things like the partnership with Nick, having guests like Clay Skipper on next week from GQ, that we're back to having these big time athletes on and telling their stories, and having people pull us aside after and be like, that's one of the best podcasts I've ever done. And that happens a lot, fortunately. And we hope to continue to give that experience to our guests and ultimately pass that along. And we hope it comes through in the podcast for all of you listening.
And maybe even officially hire a third employee.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, that'd be great. I got some ideas. I got some stuff. We need some funds. Go buy Super Coffee and Momentous and Blaze Pods and Jakku stuff.
Right.
Buy lots of it and use our codes. Talk about professional. Any final thoughts on episode 200 as we wrap up? An hour and change in.
Yeah, this has been a long one, but it hasn't felt long. It felt like a lot of fun. Just like the past 200 episodes, it hasn't felt long. It's felt like a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to, again, just hitting the ground running. We're doing a lot more. I feel there's new energy around the podcast. When we started this out, it was like, hey, let's just throw some mics on and record the conversations because they're kind of interesting and maybe people will listen to it. To now, people want to listen to it, and that took me a while to like actually comprehend. Like, why would anybody want to listen to me? Like, who am I?
I'm glad you didn't say that when we were in that coffee shop in Pete's, because we never would have started.
Right.
The whole premise was people wanted to listen to you. I was just someone to facilitate the conversation. Hey, you know how microphones work. Yeah, you started training.
Yeah.
Come on.
You
can get us into the episode, then shut up. And
I think Zoe has mics.
Which was nice.
Yeah. Zoe has some mics. We'll go use his.
Yeah.
So, and to now, I feel the reason why I feel more excited about it now than I did even for the first 200 episodes is like, I'm committing to this, like, and I feel like, you know me, like if I want to do something and do something well, I'm probably going to. So like I feel like, hey, like with this new commitment that both of us have into having this presence on social and putting out this content and being consistent and showing everybody a little bit more of ourselves as well as the content that we can make. I'm excited about where it's going to go, and I'm excited about the work that it's going to take. And for a while, I wasn't. For a while, I was like, hey, let's just throw these things on and whatever comes out of our mouths comes out. And now, like, I want to be good at this, so I feel like we will be.
Yeah, no doubt. And I'll wrap up with this thought. I think what connects with people about our podcast and about our brand in general is the authenticity. Like we've touched on it a couple of times in this episode, but this is us. This is who we are. We are two men who have developed over 5 years a deep love for each other as friends. Our families are close, and that comes across. We care about the work that we do, that we care about not just like lifting some weight, but maybe really making a difference in the fitness industry and the way we talk about things, the way we think about things, to make it better for practitioners, to make it better for people who are clients and patients, depending on, you know, where you are in all the different many corners of this wild and crazy industry that is health and wellness, to put a big umbrella on it. And I love this work. I love doing it with you. I'm thrilled that Rachel is involved with this with us. And I hope people know that, like, this is us. This thing that we do is not fake. This isn't an act for the microphones. This is absolutely us and who we are. And hopefully that continues to play out over the next whatever number 100 of episodes that we do, the YouTube videos we put out, the reels that we put out, and we appreciate each and every one of you listening, whether this is your first time or your 200th. Thanks so much for listening and for supporting us along the way. If you do want more from us, make sure you subscribe on Instagram at TrainWithTheBest21. Of course, to the podcast on your favorite podcast platform, YouTube. I'll just search for Train with the Best on YouTube, and we're right there with podcast episodes and clips, as well as how-to videos and instructional stuff on the coaching side of things. And with that, thanks so much for listening to this here, episode 200. We'll see you for a 201 next week with Clay Skipper from GQ. For Chris, I'm Craig. Y'all be good, and we'll see you on the Train with the Best podcast.